Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Parker Wiseman. I am a second-year physics student at Memorial University's Grenfell campus, and I am funded by the government of Newfoundland and Labrador. Today, I'll be giving you a brief introduction to uranium mining in Canada. Before I dive into my actual presentation, I'd just like to give you all a few little tips that I found useful in creating and presenting my presentation. So, of course, in your introduction, always remember to introduce yourself. You should always put your name on your work and always include your sponsors. For example, I received a scholarship from the Newfoundland and Labrador government. So it's always nice to acknowledge them and say thank you. And while presenting, strive to have good vocal clarity and the right level of volume of your voice. So you don't want anyone to have the strain their ears to listen to what you're saying, and you also don't want to be yelling into your mic. And also, I found useful is to start a stopwatch when you begin presenting your presentation, just so you can keep track of how fast you're talking and really aim yourself to lie within that ideal time range when you're done your presentation. So I also like to have benchmarks of time for like how far into the presentation I want to be at a certain time. For example, when I presented, I aimed to be 14 seconds in when I was done my introduction, 41 seconds in by the time I was done my second slide, minute 6 seconds in by the time I was done my third slide, and etc. And it's also nice to have smooth transitions between topics. So placing similar topics in succession in your presentation. For example, I have the history of uranium mining in Canada, the troubled history of uranium mining in Canada, and Canada's uranium mining industry today, all in succession, just so the topics flow into each other better. And of course, it helps to have short pauses in between slides, like 2 or 3 seconds, just so you can get a breath and it's not as jumbled, it flows better. And of course, practice, practice, practice makes perfect. Practice out loud a few times before you actually present, just so you feel better prepared when you actually do present it in front of the class. And of course, always remember to include your references at the end of your presentation. Academic integrity is very, very important. So what is uranium? Uranium, atomic number 92, is a rare earth metal belonging to the actinide series and is the heaviest naturally occurring element on Earth. Uranium appears silvery white and exists as a solid at STP and is approximately 68% denser than lead. And it naturally exists in the form of uranium oxide. And it was discovered to be radioactive in 1896 by French physicist Henri Becquerel. Uranium naturally occurs in 3 different isotopes: uranium-238, 235, and 234. Uranium-235 is the only naturally occurring fissile isotope, meaning that it is capable of sustaining a nuclear fission chain reaction induced by low-energy neutrons. And depending on the application, uranium may need to be enriched to a higher percentage of uranium-235 to be useful. For example, in light water reactors, fuel that has a 4% concentration of uranium-235 is necessary, so the uranium must be enriched. However, 19 of Canada's 22 nuclear reactors are CANDU reactors, which use naturally occurring uranium fuel with a U-235 concentration of about 0.72%, so no enrichment is required. Nuclear weapons contain weapons-grade uranium, which is highly enriched uranium with a uranium-235 concentration of more than 85%. This is necessary because the presence of too much of the uranium-238 isotope inhibits the nuclear fission chain reaction responsible for power. Although uranium was discovered in 1789 by German chemist Martin Enrich Klaproth, it wasn't until 1935 that the fissile isotope uranium-235 was discovered by Canadian physicist Arthur Jeffrey Dempster. In 1930, Gilbert Labine, prospector and owner of the Eldorado Mining Company, discovered Canada's first known uranium deposits in the form of pitchblende, a uranium-rich mineral on the shore of Great Bear Lake, Northwest Territories. And following his discovery, the mining site of Port Radium was founded. Throughout the 1930s, the EMC focused on extracting the radium deposits that were present on the claim, but in 1942 began supplying the United States with uranium to create the atomic bomb under the Manhattan Project. Canada's history with uranium mining has also been quite troubled. From 1942 to 1962, the EMC employed men from the indigenous Dene community of Deline to work in close proximity to uranium ore without providing them with personal protection equipment. 14 of these men, at least, later died of cancer, due in part to their unprotected exposure to radioactive materials. The EMC also dumped radioactive tailings, a byproduct of extracting uranium from ore, into Great Bear Lake. No warnings were issued to the Dene about this radioactive waste, so they were unaware that their drinking water and traditional foods were contaminated, exacerbating Deline's epidemic of radiation-caused health complications. And to give you an idea of how harmful these tailings can be, on the bottom right there is a picture of a former tailings dump site in Ontario. And it is projected that up to 2,200 fatal cases of cancer over the next 500 years will be caused from the dumping of this radioactive material. Canada contains approximately 564,900 tons of known uranium resources, or about 9% of global known uranium resources. Canada also contains the world's highest grade uranium deposits, including northern Saskatchewan's Cigar Lake deposit, which contains average uranium grades of 18%. Canada is currently the second largest exporter of natural uranium, Kazakhstan being the first, accounting for approximately 29.6% of global exports in 2019. Canada exports approximately 85% of the uranium it produces, using the remaining uranium to power its CANDU reactors, which supplied approximately 101 terawatt hours of electricity in 2018, or about 15% of Canada's total annual energy consumption. Canada also supplies approximately 75% of the global supply of cobalt-60, which is used to sterilize medical supplies. And this cobalt-60 is created in CANDU reactors powered by Canadian uranium. Cobalt-60 decays via beta decay into nickel-60 plus an electron and an electron antineutrino. Cobalt-60 initially decays into nickel-60 excited state, which further decays into nickel-60 ground state by emitting 1 or 2 gamma rays. These gamma rays are a form of ionizing radiation, which is radiation that can remove electrons from the atoms and molecules that it interacts with, making it lethal to most microbes because it damages their DNA and cellular structures. Therefore, cobalt-60 is ideal for sterilizing medical supplies and suppressing disease-spreading insects by rendering these insects sterile. Uranium mining is also greatly significant and important in the Canadian economy. As of February 2021, uranium sold for approximately 81.95 Canadian dollars per kilogram. Canada's uranium exports in 2019 were valued at approximately 1,125 million Canadian dollars. Canada's nuclear industry, which is powered by its uranium mining industry, annually generates revenues of about $6.6 billion and contributes about $1.5 billion in federal and provincial revenues through taxes. Uranium mining employs about 2,000 Canadians at mine sites, while Canada's nuclear industry directly employs about 30,000 individuals and creates about another 30,000 jobs indirectly through contracting. Within Newfoundland and Labrador, Labrador holds some of the world's largest underdeveloped uranium sources along its central mineral belt region, highlighted in red on the bottom right map. Several large deposits have been discovered in this region, including the Michelin deposit owned by Aurora Energy, which contains approximately 38,000 tons of measured and indicated uranium oxide resources. Despite this, there are no uranium mines currently in Labrador. Aurora Energy once estimated that the development of its Michelin project could create 700 construction jobs over a 3-year period, and that a uranium mine and milling operation could employ 400 people for about 17 years. And while Newfoundland lacks the uranium richness of Labrador, there are still some local deposits of Carboniferous sedimentary rock, primarily in the Deer Lake and Bay St. George basins on the west coast, that show high-grade uranium mineralization. For example, at Wigwam Brook, near Deer Lake, local uranium grades range up to 11.5%. And since uranium decays through alpha emission, and alpha particles lack the energy to penetrate the outer layer of human skin, this sample will be safe to hold in your hands. One picture from Wigwam Brook. In recent years, Canada's uranium mining industry has been declining. As of February 2021, the price of uranium had fallen approximately 79% from its value in May 2007. This major decline in the value of uranium on the global market has resulted in layoffs from major Canadian uranium mining companies such as Cameco, who laid off 700 workers in 2018. Additionally, Aurora Energy announced that it was suspending uranium exploration in Labrador, blaming low uranium prices for their decision. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many uranium mines have closed due to health concerns, such as Cameco's Cigar Lake mine in northern Saskatchewan. Health and safety is paramount in Canada's uranium mining industry, with Canadian uranium mines and mills having to have ventilation systems equipped with devices that signal when a fan is functioning improperly. These ventilation systems control the ambient concentrations of radon and its decay products, which are produced from uranium via a series of alpha and beta decays. This is accomplished by diluting the mine atmosphere with fresh air from the surface. This dilution is necessary because long-term exposure to high levels of these radioactive decay products increases the risk of developing lung cancer. For context, a sievert represents the equivalent biological effect of depositing a joule of gamma ray energy in a kilogram of human tissue. Uranium mines and mills must post signs indicating radiation dose rate at entrances to areas where the dose rate of gamma radiation exceeds 25 microsieverts per hour. Workers who are to enter areas where the gamma radiation dose rate exceeds 100 microsieverts per hour must be given a direct reading dosimeter to measure exposure to ionizing radiation. Electrons freed by ionizing radiation are captured by phosphor crystals within the dosimeter, and by measuring the amount of light emitted from these crystals when they are heated, the worker's exposure to ionizing radiation can be determined. The radiation dose limit per worker in Canada's uranium mining industry is 50 millisieverts per year and 100 millisieverts over a 5-year period. As of 2016, the 4,715 workers in Canada's mining industry, primarily in uranium mines and mills, who were monitored by the National Dose Registry, experienced a mean annual effective dose of 0.49 millisieverts, far below these dose limits. So our precautions have proven very successful in protecting Canadian workers. Thank you very much for listening. This concludes my brief overview of uranium mining in Canada. If you wish to learn more, the World Nuclear Association is a great resource to delve further into some of the topics I touched on today. Thank you very much, and good luck on your presentations.